Section 6.5, Rational Equations. This begins on page 220. Question 1. Fill in the blanks to make the statement true. Rejected solutions that make the denominator 0 are called extraneous solutions. A very strangely spelled word, extraneous. So we have an extraneous solution, or it does not exist when the denominator is 0. You do need to know the fancy word. B. To eliminate an equation of fractions, both sides of the fraction must be multiplied by the lowest common denominator of the equation. C. If you multiply both sides of an equation that has a variable in the denominator, you must check the solution. You have to double check to make sure that you don't have an extraneous root or extraneous solution. To eliminate the equation 1 over x plus 3 over 2x equals 7 of fractions, multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator, which in this case is 2x. To eliminate the equation 1 over x plus 1 plus 1 over x minus 1 equals 1 over x of fractions, multiply both sides by, again, we need to find the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator would be x times x plus 1 times x minus 1. Question 2. Simplify the expression or solve the equation. Well, which one are we supposed to do? If you do not have an equal sign, you just simplify. If you have an equal sign, you need to solve. So solve for x or whatever variable. Let's start off with 2b. 3/4 x minus 2/3 x equals 2. There's an equal sign, so we're going to solve. We need to add some fractions here. So our lowest common denominator is going to equal 4 times 3 is 12. So again, now we have a couple choices. We could make the lowest common denominator for everything 12, or we can just multiply everything by 12. There is an equal sign, so what we can do to one side of the equal sign, we can do to the other. There's a couple different methods. I'm just going to multiply everything by 12. I'm going to reduce things first so that I don't have as much to multiply by. 12 divided by 3 is 4. My numbers are smaller, it's easier. 3 times 3 is 9, so I have 9x minus 4 times 2 is 8x equals 2 times 12 is 24. 9 minus 8, those are like terms, it's just x, so x equals 24. I'll show you the other method as well. So the other method is to still use the lowest common denominator of 12, but I'm going to multiply everything to make the denominator 12. So for the first fraction, I'll be multiplying it by 3 over 3. Second fraction will be multiplied by 4 over 4. Third fraction, multiplying by 12 over 12. Remember, that's 2 over 1. So then I would have 9x over 12 minus 8x over 12 equals 24 over 12. Here I would multiply everything by 12. So the 12s will all reduce, cancel out, and I get 9x minus 8x equals 24, so x equals 24. Question 2e, 3 times z minus 1 over 2 minus z plus 2. There's no equal sign, so I need to simplify this. First thing I'm noticing is I have fractions, and my lowest common denominator here is going to equal 2. There's no equal sign, so I can't do the same thing to both sides. I have to just make sure I multiply only by 1. And since the lowest common denominator is 2, I need to multiply this term by 2 over 2. I need to multiply this term by 2 over 2. And I get 3 times z minus 1 over 2 minus 2z over 2 plus 4 over 2. Everything is over 2. Let's simplify. So multiply those brackets. That's all you can do. You can't find exactly what z is, so you're just simplifying. Question 3. Determine what values could not possibly be solutions to the following equations. Do not solve the equation. What are they asking for? Could not possibly be solutions, and don't solve it. There's an equal sign, but don't solve it. Basically, they're asking, when does the solution not exist? So when doesn't exist? Or when is it extraneous? So the denominator has to equal 0. Okay, so I'm just going to be looking at the denominators here, because that's going to be when it's going to be an extraneous solution. That's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting the extraneous solution. So I'm going to take my first one as x squared minus 4. Well, when that equals 0, it's not going to exist. Or it could be x squared minus x minus 6. If that equals 0, it does not exist. And we will solve it. X squared minus 4 is a difference of squares, so let's factor that. So that means x minus 2 cannot equal 0. X plus 2 cannot equal 0. X cannot equal 2. X cannot equal negative 2. All right, let's do x squared minus x minus 6. Let's see if we can factor this. Two numbers that will multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 1. So x minus 3 cannot equal 0. X plus 2 cannot equal 0. So x cannot equal 3. X cannot equal negative 2. We already have that one. So our answer is x cannot equal, what's the smallest one? The smallest one is negative 2. And then we have 2 and 3. Question 4. Solve the equation h. 3x over 5 minus x minus 5 over 7 equals 3. Remember that is a 3 over 1. Our lowest common denominator. 5 times 7 is 35. Again, we have an equal sign, so what we do to one side, we can do to the other. So let's multiply everything by 35. We can reduce now or we can reduce later. I'd rather reduce now because then I have less numbers to deal with. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 35 divided by 7 is 5. All right, we can't do anything with 3 times 35, so I'm just going to leave it for now. So I have 7 times 3x is 21x minus, I'm just going to write this with brackets for the moment, and 3 times 35 is 105. Okay, let's put our like terms together. Subtract 25 from both sides. Divide both sides by 16. And x equals 5. Question 5, solve. Check your solutions. So we need to check the solution for this one. So we'll make sure we do that later. One thing I'm noticing is I have variables in the denominator. So I also have to find the extraneous solutions. So that is when it does not exist. I do need to do that step as well. I want to do that one first. It's just easier. So I have 2z plus 2 cannot equal 0. I have 4z plus 4 cannot equal 0. And z plus 1 cannot equal 0. So I'm taking that directly from the question. And then now I'll just factor this. And so I have z plus 1 cannot equal 0. Z cannot equal negative 1. Okay, and for this one, I will also get z cannot equal negative 1. And z plus 1, oh, that's going to be the same thing, right? Because I subtract 1 from both sides. Okay, so z cannot equal negative 1. Okay, so let's simplify solve it. Let's solve this. There's an equal sign. we need to find our lowest common denominator. I'm going to factor those first two denominators. I think that will make it a little easier. I'll have less multiplying to do. So my lowest common denominator is going to equal, there is a z plus 1, and then we have a 2 and a 4, so it would be 4 times z plus 1. So my first fraction, I'm going to multiply it by 2 over 2. Second fraction already has the lowest common denominator. Third fraction, I'm going to multiply it by 4 over 4. So we have 2z over 4 times z plus 1. I just want to get rid of the fraction, so I'm going to multiply everything by 4 times z plus 1. So my 4's will cancel. My z plus 1 will cancel. And I have 2z plus 2z equals 4 times 2 is 8z minus 12. Numbers on one side, letters on the other. Let's subtract 4z from both sides and add 12 to both sides. So I have 3 divided by 4, 3 equals z. Okay, let's double check. That is not a negative 1. Okay, so we did check that it is not an extraneous root. Let's just double check to make sure we got this. So we'll substitute 3 in for z. It looks like 16 will be our lowest common denominator. Six plus 6 is 12. 12 over 16 equals 12 over 16. Yes, it works. 5t. 3 over y squared plus y minus 2 minus 1 over y squared minus 1 equals 7 over 2 times y squared plus 3y plus 2. Let's first find our extraneous roots. Okay, so let's factor our first one, y squared plus y minus 2 does not equal 0. Two numbers that multiply to negative 2, add to 1. Y squared minus 1 does not equal 0. It's the difference of squares. I'm running out of room. Okay, I'm going to have to circle my answers. So y can't equal 1. Y can't equal negative 2. I have 1 already. Okay. Y cannot equal negative 1. Two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 3. Okay, I think I have those ones already. Yes, I do. All right, so I've already factored the denominators, so I'm just going to rewrite this with those factors. It will be easier to solve it and find the lowest common denominator. Okay, so my lowest common denominator. Okay, so y minus 1, we need one of those guys. We need a y plus 2. We need a y plus 1 and a 2. So our first term, let's multiply everything by the lowest common denominator. There's an equal sign, so as long as we do the same thing to both sides. Now I'm going to reduce. Y minus 1 divided by y minus 1 is 1. Y plus 2 divided by y plus 2 is 1. Y minus 1 divided by y minus 1 is 1. Y plus 1 divided by y plus 1 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Y plus 2 divided by y plus 2 is 1. Y plus 1 divided by y plus 1 is 1. So I have 3 times 2 is 6. Y plus 1 minus 1 times 2 is 2. And I have a y plus 2. 7 times y minus 1. Let's multiply these out. Put our like terms together. Subtract 4y from both sides. Add 7 to both sides. Divide both sides by 3. Double check. It is not one of my extraneous roots. Yes, 3 can equal y. What I can do is I could substitute the numbers back in for my y's and see if I got the right answer. If you do get an answer where one side does not equal the other, then that means you've done a mistake someplace. Question 6. Solve the formula for the indicated variable. When you guys go on in math or in science, this is going to be extremely common where you're going to be solving equations for variables. 4x plus 3 over y equals 2 over z, and we've been asked to solve it for y. So I want to get y equals. It's a little weird because you can't actually get y equals a number. There'll be variables in your answer. But we're going to do the same process as before. So we're going to isolate the term that has the variable in it that we're interested in. So that's what I'm going to try to get by itself. So to do that, I'm now going to subtract 4x from both sides. So that I have 3 over y equals 2 over z minus 4x. Well, I need to multiply everything by y. I have to get the y in the numerator to solve for it. Let's multiply everything by y. There's an equal sign, so what I do to one side, I do to the other. So y divided by y is 1, so I get 3 equals 2y over z minus 4xy. I'm seeing I have y in two different terms, so I'm going to factor it out. Okay, I'm going to divide both sides by 2 over z minus 4x. And that doesn't look very good. I have fractions of fractions, so let's get rid of the fraction of fractions. To do that, I'm going to multiply this big fraction by z over 1 divided by z over 1 by that. So I have to be very careful. I'm going to be distributing that z over 1 in the denominator. So I have z times 3 is 3z. Z times 2 divided by z is 2. My minus sign. Z times 4x is 4x. Z, that equals y.